Planet Ant is ready to celebrate the holidays with Mackers the Elf, a production that is written and directed by our guest today, Daniel DeRey. Thank you so much for joining me today, Daniel.
Hey, good. It's good to be here.
So I'm hoping that we can just jump right in. And this is an original story that you've written. What is Mackers the Elf about?
Well, in short, it is a Christmas dark comedy
Okay.
inspired by Shakespeare's Macbeth. That's what it is, and it starts basically it's about a timid elf named Mackers who
Okay.
encounters three witches in the middle of the North Pole woods who tell him that if he is going to ascend to the top of the North Pole, as is his destiny, he has to do a very heinous evil act. And further convinced by his psychotic wife, Susan, he goes through with this act and hijinks and all kinds of crazy carnage ensues from, well, Christmas cookies, demons to Tim Burton.
It sounds like it definitely celebrates the holiday pretty well, but then also, like you mentioned, it's a dark comedy. What do you feel like the emphasis is on, like the dark versus the comedy aspect of this?
Well, basically, the show is rated R for language and violence, and that's the violence in it. It's funny. Yes, like it's every death is a hopefully every death gets a laugh, and just the situations are absurd. But of course, the characters they're reacting to it as they're in high drama. It's like this is this traumatic thing that's happening, but meanwhile, it's absolutely hysterical watching them go through this. So, yeah, essentially that's that's dark comedy.
I think it's so interesting too because recently, last year I should say, the Ringwald put on a production of like The Exorcist with Christmas.
I saw that. I loved it.
And that is such a cool blend because Christmas tends to be a very joyful time of the year, but to have something that is a little bit on the spookier side and give it, because there's also like the Christmas Carol. It talks about the ghosts and stuff like that. So I feel like you being able to blend these two things of just like the ridiculousness of that dark comedy, but a little bit of the darkness with Christmas sounds like such a cool show to develop.
Thank you. It's funny. I wrote the show. I've written like 10 full-length plays. This is the second one I ever wrote, and I wrote it back in the late winter of 2016. And so I've had this one with me for a while, pitched it to a lot of places, and eventually was like, you know what? All right, Plan Ant's open. I'm going to try to do it myself. And so here I am.
So where did you like get this idea to develop a show such as Mackers the Elf? Like where
Well,
did that
what
come
happened
from?
was, I think around that time, I had it's a bit of a couple of stories converging, but when okay, actually, I'll go back a little bit to after I graduated from high school.
Sure.
The drama crew they started this tradition of they were gonna start this tradition of having Christmas plays.
Okay.
Or sorry, a Christmas sketch contest is what they were gonna do at the party. And
Okay.
I'd written like a Celebrity Jeopardy ripoff, and then I got a message like a few days before the party, and they said, "Hey, no one has time to really do this, so we're gonna cut it." And then I said, "Well, what if I since I'm insane, what if instead I write a really crazy Christmas one act and we read that at the party?" And I did. That was something called Santa Squad, which is about a group of kids going to save Santa's daughter to get off the naughty list. And that was a big hit. And so the next year, they said they wanted to keep it PG, and I did, relatively. Um, and so the next year, they were like, "You're going to do another one, right?" And this time I said, I was like, "Yes, I will." I was going to do a full-length one. And I was writing down a bunch of different ideas that I wanted to have in the show, different things. Okay, maybe this could be something fun to work with. And then the framework came in my head because I remembered earlier that year, I was ushering for one of my college's productions. I think it was The Cherry Orchard they were
Okay.
doing. And my theater mentor, Rob Arbaugh, who is the head of theater at Rochester Christian University, then Rochester College. He was talking to Courtney Dunbar, a friend of mine who I've worked with a couple times, talking to them. And he was saying that he wanted to do a reading of Macbeth around Halloween. And
Okay.
this was like, he said, I really wanted to do that. And it was in November. And then Courtney said, we could still maybe do it. And then he just kind of laughed and went, "Oh yeah, Mackers at Christmas time," and then I heard that. And then logged that in my brain. And so when I was coming up with my play, I found the perfect framework for all of this. And so Mackers the Elf was born. And it just kind of seemed like a great title for it because, so, some people will call, I'm saying it freely because I'm not in a theater. But Macbeth, people say, like, the Scottish play or Mackers is one of the things that I heard in college they always called it. And that just seemed like a great title for this comedy. And so I wrote Mackers the Elf for that Christmas party. And yeah,
It was a big hit.
Mackers the Elf was created.
Now, has it changed since that time? Like, have you continued to develop it, or was that kind of like you knew then that you had your, like, it was it? That was the hit.
I knew that was going to be the play. I'd made little edits here and there, sort of for practicality purposes, just in case, because I was trying to pitch the show and kind of taking a couple of like the more crazy technical sides and kind of like in parentheses saying you could also do it like this maybe, but like
Sure.
things like that. And a couple little inconsistencies, getting rid of those. But essentially the plot and the characters have been pretty much the same since then.
So what is your personal like writing process, specifically for Mackers the Elf? Like, how long did it take for you to really write this down? And what was it like from start to finish until you got it completed?
Well, here's the funny thing. Well, first with this one was kind of interesting. Well, usually, and this was kind of similar with this one too, but generally every time I write, when I decide I really want to write a play and there's a play that like the idea I can't get out of my head. Usually when I'm in love with an idea like that, I write literally an outline of like, okay, scene 1, this happens, scene 2, this happens, scene 2, like it's just a line for each kind of scene. And then once I get that outline that I'm in love with and figure out like how many scenes that is, then it's pretty much there. Then it's just me going in and just writing the scene. It almost becomes like binge watching a show or reading a book. Once I've got that outline that I'm like completely solid on, I found if there's an outline that I'm not 100% on, those are usually the ones that usually kind of like, I'll get back to that, or that get abandoned. And Mackers Up, it was kind of similar, except the only thing is, because I was trying to think of ideas for this Christmas play specifically, for this second Christmas party.
Sure.
And originally what I did the same process there that I do for when I'm involved with like 24-hour theater productions, where I write just a bunch of ideas and then kind of see if like something clicks that puts them all together. And again, it was the Macbeth Christmas that put everything together here. So again, started with that list. I think I was actually writing that list I was doing a show at my college called All in the Timing. That's essentially is these 3 or 4 smaller plays combined. My play was done. My play was first. So I was kind of just sitting in the wings, sitting in the backstage, just kind of typing up. And yeah, that one, I want to say that one, I think I might have actually written it. I hope I'm not confusing this with Santa Squad, but I think I want to say maybe I wrote it in a couple days, maybe to a week even.
Which is pretty quick for a show like this.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And it's crazy. And it's one of those things where it's the jokes just kind of, here's the thing. If you're a comedy writer, in my opinion, you should be, if you write something and it makes you laugh, then like, okay, then you kind of know you have at least something that's true in that sense. What you don't want to do is like, oh, what's fun? What do people find funny? This, like me, it's a lot of like, for me, it's a lot of darkly comedic violence, pop culture references, a lot of things there. And
which I feel like speaks to a lot of people our age.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a lot of like, if you could kind of like say this thing's a kind of a combination of, obviously Macbeth, like you said, but also with a little bit of, it's kind of, if you've seen the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy Christmas special, but made that rated R, that's kind of what this is. With like elements of like Family Guy thrown in with like the pop culture humor. I mean, even Adam West is even the narrator in this play. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you definitely are pulling from like, there's quite a different things here that would appeal to, like I said, a lot of people our age, where people love pop culture. People love that dark humor. Like, I think we survive on the dark humor sometimes,
Yeah, of course.
So you had mentioned that, like, obviously you've done this for your Christmas show, for your school and stuff, but You are bringing it now to Planet Ant. What has been your process? Because you're also the director of this. What
Yeah.
is that like for you to bring it to a stage for now a bigger audience to see?
Well, it's it's incredible, especially like since we've got like a great cast now, and I've got like, yes, these are the faces for the first full production of Mackers the Elf, and that's been great to see. But the big thing is kind of like spacing out, getting into the director's seat, which I've done on a small scale in person play, and
Okay,
I've done on a full scale virtual for my I did a Dune spoof that I
that's
wrote and
awesome.
directed that we sold during the pandemic as a virtual show. Uh I co-directed that, but that was also a virtual thing. So this is
Sure,
my first time like in person, full length virtual handling a project this size. So the biggest thing has just been going in trying to like kind of look at the practicality of like, okay, I've got these crazy things on paper. What resources do we have? What resources can we get? How is this going to practically look in terms of spacing and where does everybody need to be? What props do we need? What props can we just kind of pretend that which props we just kind of pantomime and it'll be funny still? Um, that's
sure.
essentially what it is, kind of breaking it down from fantasy to reality. That's kind of what it looks like.
Are there some things that if you're doing it, even though like you can see it on the paper, you can see it in your head, but it just doesn't translate to the stage?
It's not as much it's not as much that well, okay. There is one way to do the ending, which I'm not going to spoil, obviously,
Oh,
but there's
perfect.
one way to
Right.
do the ending, and I wrote it in the script, and it's very specific what it says originally, and it's like it'd be very hard for a theater or any theater to do that. But the funny thing about it is that gives me a chance to sort of reinterpret it and be like, okay, how do we make this happen with what we have? And
For sure.
we got a lot of again a lot of great minds working on it. Joey Morse is our technical director, and he's got a lot of crazy ideas that are going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait to see him put those to work with the lighting and the sound and yeah. So it's basically about seeing what worked practically, what we can actually find. Um, a lot on Amazon or some we could just find
Sure.
or just finding stuff from people that know how to make stuff or yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Just
Sure. Was it like for you to cast this show? Because I mean, these are characters that have lived in your head for so many years. That had to be quite an experience.
it was, and it was again seeing everybody that was auditioning, and there were a lot of really great people that auditioned, and a couple of people you're like thinking, okay, who would fit in there? They can do this part. Two people can do this part, but that person be better here. But those two work together, but that actually wasn't quite what I was looking for here. And that's essentially it was just cool seeing them put together and watching people like audition with my words.
Sure.
It's just surreal watching them different people like interpreting the scenes in different ways. And the people that auditioned for Mackers brought a lot to it. I mean, there are a good amount of people that I already knew. Um, but everybody was just game and just seeing that was fun. And that was the thing, having them have fun, watching them kind of have fun auditioning with it. That was a delight as well because I want my thing is I want to create shows that are I like creating shows that are not script shows and plays that are not just like, entertaining from an audience, but are like exciting for actors to want to do. That's something I
Sure.
like to.
It's like it's such an engaging process to see like people loving your work, like and like appreciating it. And even like you said, interpreting it, maybe it's like not exactly what you had in your head, but like you see them have that joy and excitement for it.
Exactly. Or someone will bring an idea to audition for like a part that they didn't even that they didn't get. Someone do something for a part that they didn't even get when they're reading for. And when I'm at rehearsing, I'm like, the person who got that, I'm like, I'm gonna have you do that. Like, so I'm gonna have you do that still because that was great.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's so
yeah,
really cool. So it's constantly, even though the story is pretty much the same, it's constantly developing as people kind of interpret it and reinterpret it for you and stuff like that.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you feel like the show has challenged you as a writer and a director? And maybe it's hard to know where your mind was again when you were writing this and how it pushed you, but do you feel like there has been growth in both a writer and director in this show, Mackers the Elf?
I think as a director, like I said, the play is kind of, I mean, I've grown as a writer since then, not as much like with like I said, Mackers the Elf
Sure.
is pretty much more or less stayed pretty, the play has stayed pretty
Yeah.
consistent. I mean, I've definitely grown as a writer because I've written a bunch of different things since then of varying levels of, in variant levels, different genres, different kinds of plays. And I've gotten sort of a system for doing that. And I've gotten better and better with that as years go on. At least I hope so.
Sure.
To me, the
I'm
big
sure
thing,
everybody grows with that, right?
right, of course. To me, the big thing was taking the leap into directing a project of
Yes.
this scale, I should say. That was the biggest thing for me, and growing and figuring out like, okay, I can take my time, trying to tell myself like, the biggest thing was trying to tell myself like, okay, you don't need to decide this like in this moment. Well, you do have to figure it out, and you want to get the answer soon. But it's like you can take time to look at this. You can take time to look at your script and be like, okay, now I know what we're gonna do. Okay, you could learning to sort of take time and not worrying about have to go like boom, 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 everything one after the other.
Sure.
Um, just taking my time and being able to again make sure that I see what I need to see and what I need to get done. Just again, kind of working my way through that um to the process, and even like running rehearsals, which is something that I've never done, and making a rehearsal schedule, which is the first thing that was like the first thing I wanted. That's the first thing I knew. I was like, okay, I need to make a schedule. I need to get this thing so we know what we're doing. I need to make this
For
schedule so we
sure.
know what we're doing. Granted, there were changes that happened after the fact, but still. um and so yeah, that's essentially my, as a director, that's the biggest. And honestly, I have thought about a couple times, like since I decided I was going to do Planet Ant, did think about like even more. Okay, how are we going to do it if we've got this space? Because I know what Planet Ant's main stage looks like. I performed it there a couple of times for a couple of shows, and so I knew that. So I did kind of adjust in my head. Um, kind of came up with my idea for the spacing of the production, kind of a little bit a little bit beforehand while I was plunking it out, because so I
Sure.
was going into rehearsals with some form of plan. And I could adjust it here and there if like, oh wait, that didn't actually work. Let's try this then. Okay, let's do okay, if that didn't work that way, would that work if this happened and this happened? Okay, cool, we can continue. And it's things like that. But for the most part, I making sure that I went in. That was my main goal for this whole thing, is just to be as organized as possible.
Absolutely. Because I mean, I feel like there's, granted, I've never directed a show, I've never acted in a show, but it's very easy for things to go off the rails if there isn't like some framework in which to organize it, you know?
Oh yeah, and I've seen that happen in
I bet. I bet because like again, you need somebody who's going to lead that charge. And so being this your first full show directorial debut, that has to be quite a lot of pressure to make sure that you're like getting it right. And so you want to have that framework to have to make sure it goes off all right.
Absolutely.
So just turning a little bit from the show, it is the holiday season. And we always want to know, is there holiday traditions that you're still keeping alive from your childhood that you like as we're going into, Thanksgiving and Christmas and whatever holidays that you celebrate?
Well, I mean, I love Christmas movies. I love Christmas specials. So obviously, watching those, and since I started rehearsing Mackers the Elf earlier, I'm very much I'm not one of those people where it's like as soon as it's December 26th, the tree goes down. In fact, I actually had my tree up like a lot longer this past year due to kind of laziness. Um,
Sure.
but
It
basically,
happens.
but since I moved into my own place like a few years ago for the first time, that was like, putting up a tree has become putting up my own Christmas tree has become special, because even more special for
Sure.
me. Um, and I even got this tradition like that kind of started up again with my mom coming over, like helping me put up the tree, and like I bake cookies, and we like that's usually the first time I watch Elf for the first time that year. Um,
Sure.
and just simple things like that. I also have this. Fortunately, it's out of battery right. Unfortunately, I think it finally crapped out in terms of its motor. But I used to have this. Well, not used to. I still have it. But there's this. It's kind of a mechanical, like this animatronic like snowman that's like this big that has like a spinner thing, and it sings
Sure.
the Snow Miser like I'm Mr. White Christmas, I'm Mr. Snow, and like it does that whole thing.
Sure.
I think it just last year, I think when I played it, it was kind of final like "Ah, da, 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 da," and I was like,
It finally started going.
I think so. But hey, it lasted for a while. I was like a little kid when I was a little kid when I first got him. My dad like knew that was like the favorite thing. So like when I like moved out of my when I moved out before he had moved, he basically said, "Hey, here, I know you love this. You take this," and I was like, "Yes, I love it." And so those are kind of the big things. And
I love that. I love that. So then one final question for you then is just what are you hoping audiences take away from this production of Mackers the Elf?
I'm just hoping they have a good time and they just laugh. I'm just hoping that people come in and see something they haven't seen, see something that they haven't seen before. It's a new
Sure.
play. It's a new play. I want people to enjoy um live theater. I want this to just be a fun memory that they create of that holiday season. Like I had a like I had a blast watching like even the craziest holiday like shows and movies because there are some that are that are insane that we watch and eventually they become part of your that is a part of your that memory is a part of that Christmas season for you.
For
And I just
sure.
want this to be a fun, entertaining, memorable part of their holiday season.
And so I think absolutely, but I think this is hitting a lot of boxes for a lot of people. So I'm excited to see it. I'm sure many people are excited to see it. But we are so thankful that you were here with us and joining us today. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Of course, thank you guys again for having me. This has been fun.
Absolutely. So Mackers the Elf arrives at Planet Ant on December 12th and runs through the 21st. So get your tickets now and we'll see you at the show.